Hey everyone, I'm here with one of my amazing clients, Chris. I am so blessed to have such beautiful coaches in my community, and I wanted to do a couple of little interviews like this so you can get to meet them as well. I'm particularly excited about this conversation because there's so much practical value in what he and his partner Cecilia have been doing. Not just over the last 2 months, I'll get him to extrapolate further, but over the last couple of months, they've traveled approximately 2,000 kilometers all the way across Sweden, selling crystals and Cecilia's bespoke handmade jewelry at physical markets. They've applied their coaching, their mindset, and so much other cool stuff. While many other vendors had been saying that the markets are down or they're struggling, Chris and Cecilia have repeatedly increased their results, sometimes doubling what they've done, and in many markets, beating last year's already strong results by around 50%. So, aside from all these other really cool things about how much money they've made, I'll leave that to Chris to share if he wants to. It's also valuing the products because Cecilia spends a lot of time hand making jewelry with the crystals that let's just say they choose her to create the jewelry. And when she puts that kind of effort in, she wants them to be valued as well. So I'm actually just going to say, Chris, welcome. Is there anything else you want to add into that introduction?
Well, yeah, I do coaching too. Um, Maybe that's obvious from the context. So, yeah, and there is a long journey before this with awakening and personal development and basically redesigning my life from scratch. I guess that will pop up somewhere along the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before this particular season began, where things started going well in business and with your mindset, do you want to share just a little bit about what was happening before and I guess where the crossroads came for you and you decided to do things differently?
Yeah, well, for me, if I go way back in 2013, I had a life crisis, which resulted in a pretty sudden awakening and a far more enjoyable way of life. I was in banking then. I had just switched countries, and several things didn't work out well for me, and I was kind of like the vision which was fueling the career had disappeared. So it wasn't particularly inspiring. And after a while, it crashed. I had a lot of physical symptoms, problems, didn't sleep for 30 days in a row, if I remember correctly. Yeah, something like that. And yeah, it was quite intense, and the energy levels went up and down. And I was really struggling, and I had this complete existential panic where I had no idea where I was going, why I had even done what I've done. I had achieved stuff. I had progressed in my career. I was making money, but I felt miserable and highly destabilized and dysregulated all the fucking time.
Hmm.
So, but I just went with it, and I had a chiropractor, I remember, who introduced me a little bit to more alternative healing methods, and I was interested in that. They kind of hooked me. But the big thing happened one random day in Spain when I was away on a small vacation there, and I was just sitting in the sun, and this thought came to me: be true to yourself. That was the idea. And but it was not just a thought like you usually experience thoughts. It had, as soon as you thought it, emotions started moving and even the
Mhm.
body relaxed. And I'm not kidding you, 5 6 hours later, I couldn't recognize myself. I was just eating that thought. And that after that, things started to change because I went back to Luxembourg. I had the same job, I did the same things, but I felt differently. And also the things which I wasn't really interested in anymore, they I engaged less and less. And 6 months later, I had just come back from Canada. I had carried out an education for clinical hypnotherapist, and I went out from the job. And then I started a period of traveling. And for 7 years until COVID, I traveled more or less full time and did a lot of amazing things. Met gurus in India and just experienced these amazing synchronicities. But also consciously did curated trips, which were meant to transform me, and it worked really well. Um,
So
but
what do you, sorry, go
Mhm.
ahead.
Yeah, no, go on. I was, yeah, go on.
I was going to say, so what do you now understand to be your new truth? Because when that was be true to yourself, what have you now, I guess, woken up to or become aware of since 2013?
Well, the essence is that you cannot be anything. If someone says you can be anything, that's actually not true. You can create anything. You have the capacity to create anything, but you cannot really make yourself love anything. And if you're consciously creating a life which you're not loving, where you're miserable, then you're far worse off than if you're unconsciously creating it. So I learned that there is a subset of life which will be healthy and enjoyable. And I
Mm.
perfectly made peace with that. And
Okay.
that's your highest values, basically. It's the same thing.
What were you hearing from, like, I guess, other people around you at the time you were going through this? Were there any difficult times that you had to go through?
Not really, because they could see on me that I was so inspired and I was so liberated from letting go of these, you know, externally imposed musts or shoulds or ideals, values, that they just saw that this guy is not going to move, whether he drives his life to complete misery or whether he will succeed, that's another question, but he will not stop. So most people were inspired, and I have had a lot of people who were participating at a very far distance. Like, they continued their life exactly as they did, but they valued the conversation of just another perspective. And although I was in the beginning a bit pushy within, like not pushy, but I was very, very enthusiastic. So I could transform a whole party of 40 people and do body testing on everybody as a stunt. It was a fun thing. And people were like, wow, my body said that. And I actually really feel like that. I was just not honest with myself. And it spread and other people wanted to. So I did these kind of things. I took up a lot of space. I had no shame about it whatsoever. And it was, like this fresh infatuation. You thought you had found the key to the universe and it was your duty to share it with everybody. But I did it from joy. So people participated in that to various extent, and very few people told me what later. Also, I was 32 years old at that time. I had no kids. I was single. Like I could do whatever I wanted, and
Mm,
so not much resistance. No.
nice. I'm going to ask you in a minute to share three hacks or three tips that somebody who might have been in your place in 2013 could benefit from now that you've done this journey for 13 or 14 years. Like something that you want to share with them that really helped you. And if you had known that at the time, would have made this journey a lot easier for you.
Hmm. All right. So I would say the first thing is make things easy for yourself. Usually, when we want to do something new or achieve something new, there is a specific skill or trait in which we want to become more comfortable, more experienced, more proficient. You don't want to make your first presentation to a room of CEOs. Just like make it easy. Start small because your nervous system doesn't get the difference. If you're going to present, like if I'm going to have this speech, for example, which I'm having now, my nervous system doesn't know the difference in the actual delivery, whether I'm speaking to, 30 CEOs or whether I'm speaking to 30 homeless people. There's no difference. But I will make it difficult by seeing like, ooh, these high profile people, ooh, these critical people. So if you actively seek, like when you bring up a child, I did a lot of inner work bringing up my inner child. You will, if the child is learning to write, you're not giving them to make like a PhD. It's just like write ball on a small board or something like that, like small incremental steps. First, low consequence, low leverage. If you fuck up, it doesn't matter. Don't put yourself in situations where you have one shot and then you're out.
Nice. So
That's
the
the first.
first one, small incremental steps.
Yeah, because after a while you will naturally be, and it's not even that you will be naturally hungry for bigger challenges. The universe will throw them at you. you don't need to seek that out. I mean, challenges are there. The universe will push you. You don't need to add to that. You don't need to seek that out. Just be nice to yourself, like you would to a 1 year old or a 2 year old. Treat yourself like a kid because you are a kid. Anything you're new when you're a kid.
Yeah,
All right.
good idea.
That's one thing. The second thing is listen to your inner voice, whatever it is. I'm not saying obey it religiously, but hear it out. In the very beginning, I did this practice with the pendulum. That actual pendulum is here, right here. This is my first pendulum, which I got uh, when I was uh, when I was starting this. You can ask questions from your subconscious, like you get a yes, no answer. When I first got in contact with that, I was euphoric. I mean, I could ask which tie to wear today or whether I should fill up my cup of coffee fully or not. The quality of the questions varied, and so the quality of the answers as well. But that wasn't the point. The point was my nervous system learned that somebody cares, somebody is interested. Very few people had asked me before what I'm deeply thinking. Very few people had asked me what I was feeling. I asked myself 100 times a day. To my nervous system, it became normal that it is interesting to the outside world. It didn't get the difference whether it was myself or somebody else asking.
Mm,
So that what is happening in there is relevant. So hear your inner voice, then do
mm,
something with it. So if you're hearing it and then consistently ignoring it or going against it, that's not good either. But just the interest, the attention itself will completely change how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the world, and how you feel about your participation in the world. So hear the inner
beautiful.
voice, and guess what? You will find a lot of valuable things there, especially if you monitor patterns over time. This is what journaling is about. And so, yeah, do that. Highly
Beautiful.
recommend.
Hear your inner voice and do something about it. Number two.
Yeah, do something like that. But don't obey every single thing because it's not an oracle you're speaking to in there. You will get nonsense as well. So
Yeah.
you need to filter. Hearing is
Nice.
the first step.
Yeah. And
And I think the third thing is that at least this is what I found. I started just I was also inspired by like Paulo Coelho's this The Alchemist, that book. I had read it in an earlier mini life crisis I had in 2005. And that plays out in Andalusia in Spain, and that's where this awakening happened. So there was like an environmental relevance as well. But it's just follow your heart, your intuition, do what you feel called to. And most of the things which come from within aren't high risk things. It's people think that, oh, you change your life by divorcing your wife or husband or quitting your job, and you do it radically and then you have no plan, nothing, and then just go with it. This is in the direct opposite of what I first proposed. Do it in small, nice steps. But when you have an inspiration to do something, follow it because it is part of a bigger picture which you may not be seeing. Because I
mm,
lived like that consistently. I do that still. That if I feel like doing something, unless it's directly dangerous or very, consequential, like I'm not doing it always, but most of the time I will follow it. And when I look back in retrospect, having lived like this in what is it now, 13 years, there are so many pieces which add together where I can see like if I wouldn't have done that, this wouldn't have happened. But when I did this, I couldn't even imagine this. This didn't even exist in my imagination. So that's how life pushes its or like grows itself forward, but you need to allow life to move through you. If you try to figure out everything and run from your mind, then the highest possibility you can imagine in your mind is your highest possibility. And that is selling yourself short.
mm,
No matter how high visions you have, they are selling yourself short compared to what you're capable of.
beautiful. My language would be to follow your inspiration and take action. What would you
Yes.
call that? Yeah,
Listen
cool.
to your heart. That's what I would say. Listen to your heart.
Beautiful.
But it
Now,
means taking action, not just making plans. Absolutely taking action.
I mean, you shared a really cool story that a few times you just were inspired to take a certain flight, to go to a certain city, to go. T Talk me through what happened. And I think you call it a traversal. Yeah.
Yeah, so first it was just inspiration driving me here and there, and then things happened there which were, like weirdly aligned. Like I can just say one particular little set of synchronicities when I how I got out of my Luxembourg apartment and banking world. So I wanted to do this hypnotherapy education. I looked for some, one was inspiring. I called up the owner. We had a very good chat. It was cool. And the price, I don't remember the exact price. I think it was $5,000, something like that. Anyway, the day after, I received a message that my grandmother had given me $3,000 because she had some excess cash to just give out. Like the day after I had that conversation. So I was like, okay, that's nice. Then, when I had booked the course and the date was set, the day after I had booked my flight, a colleague called me and asked, like, when were you going to Canada? Because there is this guy coming from Norway who would need somewhere to stay. I was like, I said the date. He was like, oh, he's coming that same day. Talk to him. So he ended up renting my apartment and my car. He paid me 1,800 euros for the apartment every month while I was away, which was like 1.5 months, and 600 for the car. That together with the grandmother already covered all the costs. Okay. Then in the very end of this education, I had this vision of coming back to Luxembourg, having a conversation with somebody, and being out of the building before noon. I even told my father, I'll be out of the building before noon. I told that. And that's exactly what happened. I even had the severance package, everything settled.
Wow.
And the Norwegian guy, he stayed in the apartment for 1.5 years in total. So
Huh.
I didn't, and he ended up buying all my furniture as well.
Wow.
Literally, that life just, it was so easy how it moved from me. I emptied the wardrobes like 6 months in. So
Wow.
the universe really opened up, like, go this path. And I have many more stories like this
Yeah.
where I just surrendered to the journey and things showed up
The
in India,
synchronicity after
Cambodia.
synchronicity. Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Now,
So, mhm.
you've shared lots of these kind of stories for me, and I think that we would be here all day. And I think that if anyone wants to know more of these stories from Chris, definitely start following him. His name is Christopher Delly, and he does a lot of different kinds of coaching. But if you're somebody who knows that there is more to life than just what you're walking around experiencing with your five senses, and you want somebody to hold you in an empathetic space, then Chris definitely is a person that you want to connect to. Now, I have a couple of other questions. Prior to joining us in the fast track to paying clients and getting your business blueprint done, what was going on in your life? And I guess why did you make the decision to join us?
So I'll answer your previous question too with that because you mentioned this with traversal. Traversal is a thing. First, I just followed my heart and I noticed a lot of things opened up. And after a while, I started doing that consciously. And I was like, okay, if I could, because I learned that when you travel, when you have experiences, they add up and they change you. You put something into the world, but the world puts something in you. And this is not random. So after a while, I started doing these conscious trips where I was like, I want to change this in my life. And then I was having this, it was like having this conversation with the quantum field where it showed me itineraries like go there, go do this, and things added up. Like a very concrete thing. I was in Bali and I had this choice like, if you also do a trip to the Gili Islands, it will significantly help you start a business. Okay,
Mm.
cool. I went to the Gili Islands. One morning, I feel inspired, go out and have a walk around the island. It's a small island, takes like an hour to walk around. There I meet a guy who was an entrepreneur, a Swedish entrepreneur who had just recently started a new fashion brand for reading glasses. Okay. That was my first client when I came back to Sweden and started my business.
Wow.
It happened like that. And this event happened before COVID. And it was like I met this guy before COVID, but it was COVID that pushed me to go back to Sweden.
Mm.
Right. So it was like that. So I like hyper focused on this traversal thing. And anyway, at one point I made a decision because I noticed that I was moving so much outside of reality and it was just an inner journey that I actually made a conscious decision to start a more, how to say, continuous life embedded in society. That was a conscious choice I made. It took like because I had lived like this for 6, 7 years by then. So it took about 1.5 years of specific trips to get back there. And then COVID was the punctuation. And then I was back in Sweden. So we started the business because that guy called me up and asked, hey, can't you come and coach my staff? That was how it happened. It was his initiative. Um, so I started up that. But I had gotten out of the habit of doing things for an outcome, for example. I was so into this karma yoga and this just like do what you feel like and it will sort itself out. But I also started feeling a bit of anxiety from money because I did have some savings. I did sell a property earlier, so I had money for this trip, but it wasn't an endless source. So, and then I got into coaching because I was doing some healing work but it wasn't really categorized and structured and I couldn't explain to anybody what I was doing. I was like, let's find out. Wasn't a marketable, concrete business. It was something that happened when it happened, and you don't want to build your financial safety on that. So
Mm.
that's how I find after a few, not as bad as you describe with some of the other clients, but after a few, let's say, not disappointments, but less fruitful engagements with other coaches, I met you.
Oh, you said something about you saw the blueprint actually on your feed and something about Kali Mata, one of the goddesses.
Yeah, that was interesting because at that time I was in the Ingraziosis community, but only at his very first like do-it-yourself kind of structure, and I was doing some other. I had bought some other coaching as well, and I did like I feel where things are going pretty well. I notice early when something is not going to bear fruit, and that was what I was feeling. And then I saw this blueprint. It's like, what is this, a blueprint? It's I didn't even get what it was, but it somehow pulled me in, and I saw some presentation about it. And I had these dreams. I had both Saraswati and Kali showing up in dreams, telling me that this may not be the only way, but it is definitely the fastest way if you wanna. What was the word she used? It was something like if you wanna transform this fire into service. It was something like that, like the
Wow.
fire and the wisdom that was burning. And I saw these images was spinning like this in the heart, and then it became a channel out to people instead. So, and it was explicitly said that this with you and the blueprint was the fastest way there. So I joined your challenge
You
that
know what?
produced.
I would love to put that in an ad. How
Yeah, you
funny is
can say put it in that.
how perfect is that? I'm getting a lot of goosebumps. Obviously, we had a lot of Hindu goddesses and talking about the stories as a child because my mother grew up as a Hindu, and so hearing that it's actually I believe that there's communication in all kinds of ways. Like if you want to say conversations with God, they can come in any ways through dreams, through, messages, conversations, synchronicities, people you meet. So that's a pretty cool story. Actually, I've never heard you tell that in its entirety. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
and then I went to the challenge, and it wasn't like that the decisions was made because of that, but of course you got my attention, and then things felt right, and yeah, I joined, and then I joined your high ticket 6 months later, and yeah, I've had some cool
awesome.
experiences there too.
I do want to talk about what have you personally enjoyed as results in your personal life, in your business, in sales, in your, I guess, attitude with being in our community and doing some of the work that, because I know that the money work really had a big impact on you as well.
So I think that the most understated or underarticulated benefit from being your client is that you have a very strong uh, intention for your clients, for their growth, for their well-being. It is very strong, heart-centered, and it's dense. With dense, I mean it will have an impact on your probability space. So whenever you walk around, there's a certain probability of this happening, that happening, and if everybody is cursing you, you have a higher probability for bad things happening. In the same way, people who are very loved and very cared for it's not a cure against stupidity, but it will alter the probability space, right? If you make stupid decisions, you will have bad outcomes. But still, and that from the payment being made, it's not the decision, it's when the payment is made, when the exchange is a fact. From there, that is there. And I mean, I would bet you money that if you signed up a client and then for logistical reasons, you never got to have a single session with that client in a year, and he didn't attend a single group meeting, he would still get a significant benefit which could be measurable in his life. I'm certain, 100% sure, just because
I,
of this influence.
I do love that. Holding
That's
intention
one thing.
perception is very important, and I see that in you with your clients as well.
Yeah. Because there are many competent coaches out there who, when they close the call, you cease to exist.
Mm.
Right? So they will not have their energy invested. So you have the call, and that can be very loving, very supportive, authentic, and real, valuable, nothing bad. But when the call is done, then it's done. This is, I'm saying this is under-articulated and understated. This is not, there are many other things I want to mention here, but I particularly wanted to mention this one because I think this is not talked about enough. And this is rare. Few coaches do that because unless you're like naturally loving and care about other people and also have this in your head all the time, for many people, this requires effort.
Mm. I want to know about how you work with your clients. So give me one or two stories of clients that have come to you. The intention, let's start with that because we're talking about that, holding the perception for them, the transformation, and the kind of results you've been able to facilitate for them as well.
So usually like, first of all, I mostly attract my clients. So I go to open air markets. I meet probably on a market, maybe I meet 1,000 people, 1,500 people. It depends, just guessing. So run into people there. And people also contact me on social media. I'm not the one who push things out there. I attract. That's in general how I operate. Not so strange given the story I told about all the traversal and all that. So usually when people approach me is when they feel consciously or unconsciously that some area of their life is degrading. Like they on the deeper intelligence has already understood that this is only going downhill now, but most of the time they can't articulate what it is. There may be a series of events which they have connected together somehow, or not even that. Sometimes it's just a feeling. But it's always this that there is a descending, like a detrimental trajectory, which is compounding in their life.
They
Sometimes
know
it's the
they
whole
know
life.
this is not sustainable as it
Yes.
is.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the whole life. Sometimes it's just an area which is of value.
Mm,
If it's not a valued area, usually people don't care or don't do anything about it.
mm.
So that's how it starts. And usually what I will do is that in that first conversation, which can really be out in the market, I show them, now it's a quite instinctive process. I just show them that something they hold true as an absolute reality embedded fact, like gravity, is
Yeah.
actually not that. It's just your configuration. So they, on some internal level, they understand, whoa, this can change. And the natural question is, what else can change? And what's the consequence of that?
And you feel
That's like,
this, don't you? You
I
feel
feel
this
that.
even before. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that immediately. Like I see people, I've learned that because I work so much in the quantum, like I've learned to see people as their causal configuration and their like trajectories and probabilities. So I can see in people that, okay, if they activated this aspect of themselves, that would like flourish. And if they activated this aspect, it would probably not do anything. Like I see the coupling between the person and the reality they are participating in.
And this is what you also select. So Cecilia and you also select the crystals that will support them in the
Yeah,
reality they want to step into. So it's not like they don't choose the crystals, almost like the crystals choose them. and what they want to be more aligned to. And just on that note, I know you've also sent crystals to me because when I've shared with you, like I'm moving house or I'm going through a particularly stressful thing, like you'll just stop and you'll feel it and you'll say, "Oh, these crystals came to me for you," and then you'll just send them to me. And frankly, very reasonable costs, and they're handpicked. So just to guys let you know that if there is something that you want to speak to Chris about and you know that crystals could support you on the journey, that's another thing that he adds into his coaching. So anyway, go back to go back to the person you're speaking to. Yeah,
Yeah, so if there is a connection, and it's also if I have available capacity, because I'm just like you in that sense, I will follow through the person because I see the consequence landscape. I also see what it means to the client if the coach is overwhelmed for 3 weeks and pulls back. I see the consequence of that. So I will not sign anybody unless I know 100% certain that I will be able to show up during the duration of the contract. No exceptions, zero exception tolerance. That's the standard I hold myself to, which
yeah,
means
but
I don't
you
just
don't.
sign up. Hmm?
Yeah, you choose the people. You don't just take anyone.
Yeah, and that means I don't sign up randomly, 50 people just like that because I won't have the capacity to hold them. But from there, usually when we have this connection, I start to talk about more specifically because the thing is, I'm not selling an exact product like fix your relationship or fix your life. It's tailor-made, it's 100% bespoke. This is the way my intelligence works, and this is one of the key things which shifted when I had the awakening back in 2013, that I stopped working with general models. Everything is bespoke. There are patterns and similarities, absolutely, and I'm a master at seeing them. But what's relevant is what do you feel? What's happening in your life? Which is the exact piece, which if that would be in place, the rest of your life would not be losing energy, but gaining energy. So
That's
it's
right.
bespoke.
And you
And
said sometimes people come to you because they're holding actual physical pain. Sometimes it's mental and emotional pain, but it's usually the level of pain that has actually made them realize that something has to change now.
yeah, pain is the best butt kicker. It's just the way it is. That- and then from there I make them an offer, and I have two containers. One is a 6 month container, one is a 1 year container. There are payment plans, there is a pay in full version, but it's quite skeleton like in what I would put on a web page or on social media, because you will see its structure when it is actually aligned to what you need. It's a
Mm.
bespoke program, and I do sessions every other week. Usually that's the pace I do, but I've had some clients where we had another setup. So it's very tailor-made. And nowadays, like the last programs I've sold, we actually during the challenge or sales call ended up with one sentence, which is a destination. It's very close to the traversal I used to do with the
Well, I
travel.
was about to say that because one of the things that, and let me just quickly talk about what this traversal is, that Chris can fly to you and help you to actually, in my language, jump, jump realities. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was doing when I was like going from one place to another. And it was always like that, because everything comes from within. You're only perceiving reality to the extent you're perceiving it. Reality doesn't impose anything. You pick what you couple with, what you meet. So in these trips, like, okay, so say for example, if I had a childhood story which put me inferior and the vision of me myself was incompatible with that, guess what? Without exception, during these specific destinations, that part of me was pulled up to the surface and could be released, so that I no longer coupled from there to reality. Then something else happened which made me couple from another aspect, which is more outgoing or whatever. So when you came back, then that was the new you. And sometimes it took me weeks to understand who I was and how reality was, because though the past was probably the same, because to what I can remember, but it had a different significance. So the charge and the meaning associated with a certain past event was completely changed. So I do this in the coaching as well. And yeah, it's basically a journey. I would say it's a journey through reality where you change, and as you change, the reality change with you, and out comes a different person. The destination is fixed, the journey is fixed to 80%. The rest we win.
Yeah, nice. You said consistency plus a growth mindset equals growth. Okay. And what I've seen in you is since you've been in the community, you've been really consistent in not choosing to listen to what the masses are saying, right? You get to choose your growth mindset, your attitude, your reality, and you've managed to create some very impressive results as a, consequence of applying that. So tell me more about that and tell me some of the results you've created as well.
Well, we in 2023 we started this crystals business. It was my partner Cecilia who she felt called to start handcrafting jewelry from crystals. She actually used one of the ingraziosis processes of this ladder of where you are, where you want to go, and then the why and the how. She did that and she committed to just making 40 pieces of jewelry during 40 days. I think that was the thing. I think she ended up making 15 or something, but it doesn't matter. She did it anyway. And then we went to a market and we put up the jewelry. We had brought some crystals also, just which we had because the table was too empty, and we sold. We sold for I think we made $400 that first market or something like that. But mostly it was nice. No, nobody attacked you. Nobody questioned why the fuck you were there. You know all these stupid thoughts you may think. Like people will literally come there and say like, "Hey, why are you here?" Of course, that
By
never
the
happens.
way, I do want to talk about that because a lot of people feel like they're going to die if they're visible. So
Yes,
yeah, those thoughts
I
can,
felt like that.
yeah.
And I thought I was gonna freeze to death in March in Sweden. And 2 years later, we was in the very north of Sweden, about 50 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, in the middle of winter, and we didn't die there either. So yeah, you have these things, and it's really true. Like, action is the best antidote to anxiety because anxiety is all the nonsense you make up of what could happen, and action will give you what actually happens. And when we are like, this could have happened potentially, possibly, yeah, but this happened, and when this have happened, I don't know, 5 times, then you don't listen to the nonsense that much. So so anyway, we did that, and then that grew. The money work which you did was pretty cool. Because here's the thing, if you change your mindset, for reality to reflect it, you still need to participate in reality. If you're like, I'm working from having a very hostile relationship with people, and I change my internal mindset to have a very loving and friend relationship, guess what? If you never meet a single human being, you will never be able to test it, right? So with the money thing and with the markets, the cool thing was we were going to markets, and some of the markets we attend have 150,000 visitors in a few days. Okay. So there is a lot of randomness. Reality can express itself in many, many pathways. Okay. So when we changed the money mindset, well, guess what? Sales tripled sometimes. I remember the first boot camp we had attended with you, it was in August 2024. We had averaged around $500-600 on our markets, even multi-day markets. And then we went to a small one-day market, an insignificant one. I don't go to that one today because there are far better markets to go to. But we made like $1,100 just like that. Boom. No particular reason. And I was like, maybe it was the money mindset thing. Ha ha ha. Yeah. But then you did a series with money mindset over 6 weeks before Christmas. And then when the Christmas markets started, I think the smallest one was 1,500 in 5 days. So again, it like increased a lot, and it continued like that. So then after a while you get used to that. Okay, if you do this work, you get a physical result. And if you look back, did I change products? No. Did I change the way I behave? Not that I was aware of. Did I dress differently? No, I did not. Did I go to an exceptionally much higher probability of sale market? No, I did not. So, and after a while, when you learn that and you expect that it's going to make a difference, then it makes the difference even more. And after a while, it's just normal. You take a coaching session, you see the result the day after. Business as usual, ordinary, normal. Let's go on with our lives. That's the
Yeah.
world I live in now.
Nice. And that's the world also that you're a fast implementer, you're highly coachable, so of course you're going to apply it, but you're seeing these results for your clients as well. Now,
Yeah.
the three things that I've really taken out of today is number one, you don't inherit other people's stories about what markets are doing or what the world should be doing. Number two, that you remember that your nervous system and energy are part of every sale, right? That's one of the lessons I'm getting. And that use consistency and action, right, to build the evidence, the capacity and the expectation of growth. So you don't just conceptualize it, that you've got to get the evidence back as well.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, action, some, I think it was Bashar who said that action is the language of physical reality. You can think a lot, you can put a lot of thoughts out there, but they will only become a reality through action. Now, that may be somebody else's action. You may become really good at influencing the general behavior of reality around you, and people will act. And that works particularly well in certain areas, not that well in money, because I have not met many people who are like, I took this action, I made this money, but it was originally your thought, and therefore I'm giving you half. This never happened. Nobody fucking does that. Okay. Which means if it comes to something which is a personal achievement, which is of growing your own finances, of you gotta take the action. Because in other areas, if we're talking about, for example, lifting the energy of a community, you can channel positive energy to a community, and everybody will make small micro actions which will be less hostile and more friendly, and over time that becomes habit, and you can go out to that community without having participated, and you will feel it. It works in large collective structures. Money is an individual structure. You got to take the action. The only way it works.
Yeah, unless you might not like money and you just send out the intention to other people for them to get it and just hope that they're maybe going to give you a bit, but let's face it, they're probably not going to give it to you. Um, so before we finish, what would you like to say to someone who knows that they're capable of more? Maybe they're at the point of their life now where it's unsustainable for them to continue as they are, but they keep getting pulled off course by other people's opinions, their own self-doubt, or actually being inconsistent in their action. What would be your advice for them?
See the randomness of things and laugh at it. Because more like, so if somebody comes with an opinion, for example, only bad people do that. Yeah, but why do you even care about what is a bad person? Where does that come from? It's a random thing you picked up in childhood that you have, or elsewhere, that you have then include into your identity, and the pain of facing it, admitting that this is not so resourceful and changing it is larger than suffering it. Okay, this is the problem when it's a bigger pain for you to face that, yeah, you're doing something which is probably not so productive or so resourceful, and it has negative consequences to you and others. When you rather not see that and instead just suffer those same consequences over and over again, there's a self-reinforcing loop. What I learned, mostly by chance, I was lucky. I didn't like, now I train myself to some of these mindsets, but at that time it was just lucky that to shift a negative belief, to shift a negative assumption, truth, whatever, habit, was far less painful than to continue with it. Therefore, for me, it was like, oh, can I change it? I'm changing good structures too, just because I
Mm,
can, because I
mm,
can expand them. I do that. I mean, when we talk, it's rarely we talk about that, ooh, this is going straight to hell. I think I'm going to die anymore. That's not the narrative. It's more like, yeah, I'm making all of this money. How can we make it more useful or whatever? So be happy to change. And it's like, whoever you are today, you're going to look back at another version and think like, ooh, how could I be that? Or I'm so much further ahead. And there is a future version of you looking at you now, thinking the same way. That's just a progression of life. That's normal. It doesn't matter. So just like detach from who you were or who you are and fill your mind with what you want instead, or something that energizes you. It starts the train and the train goes by itself. It's so easy. Just
mm.
get started and enjoy the process. It's
I
not
love
rocket
it.
science.
I love it. Chris, thank you. It's been really, really valuable, and I love watching you and Cecilia create a business that combines not just growth, you have adventure, you have relationships, conversations, and genuine enjoyment. I mean, if I had just traveled across the whole length of Sweden, I would have been exhausted. And you're like, oh, that was so much fun. And you came back again, like you've jumped again. So, any final parting words before we wrap this up today?
Do things about your shit. That's just what I like. Talk to me or talk to, like, if you have something which you're genuinely unhappy with or which you feel is going in the wrong direction, do something about it. It's possible. Anybody tells you it's not is lying or is unaware. It is possible. There are plenty of really good coaches out there. You are one of them. I'm one of them. Just contact somebody. It's worth it. I mean, $5,000, $10,000 for a coaching program. I say this to my people that who buy crystals because there sometimes it happens. People look at few crystals and like, ooh, $30. I mean, do you know what the price is of a big Mac and company? And do you know how quickly that ends up in the toilet and it's forgotten, even have made damage to your system? Like people waste so much money on stuff which is useless or even detrimental. It's
Hmm.
worth it. It's absolutely worth it. If you're not investing in yourself, I mean, what the fuck are you doing? Seriously, that's my parting message. If you're not investing in yourself, then what the fuck are you doing? That's it from
Thank you,
me.
Chris. So much fun. Lots of love.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.